Town 7. Moonville, Vinton County, 1 to 30. We have to start with the one where the homes are not cheap because they are old or isolated. The homes in Moonville are not cheap. They are non-existent. Moonville, Ohio has been completely abandoned since 1947. There are no homes to buy. There are no lots to build on. There is no downtown, no main street, no post office, no school. There is a tunnel, a cemetery, and a trail through Zaleski State Forest where a railroad used to run. We're starting here because Moonville is the end of the road, the final destination of the trajectory that every other town in this video is somewhere along. Moonville shows you what complete abandonment actually looks like. And once you see it, the prices in the towns that come after it start to make a different kind of sense. The Marietta and Cincinnati Railroad pushed its tracks through Vinton County in the 1850s, and Moonville grew up around the coal and iron operations the railroad made economically viable. It was never a large town, primarily two extended families, the Coes and the Fergusons, along with a scattering of miners and railroad workers in the surrounding hollows. A depot, a schoolhouse, a few homes, a store. What made Moonville infamous was its tunnel, a brick-lined passage cut through a high hill on the Henry Ferguson property, and the extraordinary number of deaths that accumulated along the tracks over the following decades. The terrain was steep and roadless. Residents walked the railroad tracks because there was no other way to travel between communities. Trains moved through the tunnel without signals. The combination was lethal, and the fatalities accumulated into a body count that generated ghost stories almost immediately and has never stopped generating them. By the 1940s, the coal seams were exhausted. The last family left in 1947. The buildings deteriorated through the 1950s and were gone by the 1960s. The railroad continued to use the line until 1988 when the tracks were pulled up. Today, the Moonville Tunnel still stands. The bricks are covered in graffiti. The cemetery holds the graves of the families who built this community. A rail trail winds through the forest following the old railroad grade, and hikers who make the walk encounter what is left of a town that held living people 75 years ago. Stone foundations in the undergrowth, the regularity of cleared spaces where houses stood, and the tunnel itself, standing in the forest like something that doesn't belong to any time period at all. In the years since the Moonville Rail Trail expanded, the tunnel has become one of the most visited abandoned sites in Ohio. The prices in Vinton County for actual homes with actual walls start around $15,000. Moonville is what $0 looks like. Everything after it is context. Town 6, Renville, Perry County, 3 to 500 in 1888, the town of Renville, Ohio elected a black mayor. This was not a symbolic act. This was not a diversity initiative or an honorary title. This was a working-class coal mining community in Perry County, Ohio in 1888, 23 years after the Civil War, 30 years before women could vote, in a state where racial tensions and segregation defined daily life across most of the region, electing a black man named John Brown as their mayor in a contested Democratic election. Renville was built in 1873 by the Poston and Beaumont Company around a coal seam in Perry County's Sunday Creek Valley. From its earliest days, it attracted a workforce that was more racially integrated than virtually any other coal camp in Ohio. Black miners from the South, immigrant workers from Wales and England, white Appalachian families, living and working in the kind of proximity that the surrounding region did not practice and did not endorse. The integration wasn't utopian. There were tensions and conflicts and the same power imbalances that characterized every company town of the era. But it was real in a way that distinguished Renville from what surrounded it. John Brown served as mayor. The community had a newspaper, a church, a school that served children of all backgrounds. At its peak, Renville had several hundred residents and a commercial district that served the surrounding mining communities. When the coal ran out, Renville ran out with it. The population declined through the early 20th century. By mid-century, the community had contracted to a handful of families and scattered structures. Today, Renville has approximately 30 residents. It is one of the smallest incorporated villages in the state of Ohio. The homes that remain in Renville are priced to reflect that reality. Properties in and around Renville have been listed for under $15,000. For a community that made history in 1888, a community that practiced, however imperfectly, something the rest of Ohio was not practicing, the current price of its real estate is a specific kind of summary. The first black mayor in Ohio history served a town you can now buy a house in for the cost of a decent used car. Town 5, Shawnee, Perry County, 5 to 7:30. If you drove down Main Street in Shawnee, Ohio, without knowing anything about the town, you would think you had taken a wrong turn into 1895. The architecture is Victorian. The brick buildings with overhanging porches and detailed facades were constructed during the coal boom of the 1870s and 1880s and have not been significantly changed since. Two opera houses stand on the same block. The Tecumseh Theater, built in the era when Shawnee was the entertainment capital of eastern Appalachian, Ohio, has had its exterior restored and still anchors the commercial district. About half of the buildings on Main Street are boarded up. The population is around 650 people in a town that once held more than 3,000. Most residents drive 25 minutes to Logan or more than an hour to Columbus for work because there is almost no employment in Shawnee itself. But the architecture remains. And because of that, Shawnee is recognized by the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation as one of the best preserved examples of boomtown Victorian architecture in the entire eastern United States. The coal that made Shawnee was extracted from the surrounding hills of Perry County, which was Ohio's leading coal-producing county in the 1870s and 1880s. Workers came from Wales, England, Ireland, Italy, and Scotland. They built ethnic neighborhoods, labor organizations, and the commercial infrastructure of a community that expected permanence. The coal ran out. The mines fired the last workers in 1972. A fire set by striking miners in 1884, more on that in the next town, is still burning underground beneath the hills surrounding Shawnee, a slow combustion that has been smoldering for over 140 years. Properties in Shawnee are currently listed between $15,000 and $40,000, depending on condition. For a Victorian-era home on a brick-paved street in a town that looks like a film set, because it essentially is one, with a preserved commercial streetscape that a production company would spend millions to recreate, that price requires explanation. The explanation is that 650 people live in a town built for 4,000. That the nearest grocery store is a significant drive. That employment requires a commute that makes the price of the house feel like the smaller half of what you're paying. Shawnee is genuinely beautiful. The price is genuinely low. Both things are true, and both things come from the same source. Town 4, New Straitsville, Perry County, 7:30 to 9:30. The mine fire under New Straitsville, Ohio has been burning since November 1884. That is not a typo. Not 1984, 1884. The fire started when striking miners, locked in a bitter wage dispute with the Sunday Creek Coal Company, loaded mine cars with burning timbers and pushed them into the mine shafts in an act of sabotage that was intended to make the mines temporarily unusable. Instead, the fire reached a coal seam that ran for miles underground. It has never been extinguished. 140 years of continuous underground combustion. The federal government attempted to put it out in the 1930s under a Works Progress Administration project. They failed. Engineers have assessed it multiple times since. Every assessment has concluded that extinguishing a fire burning through accessible coal seams across an area of several square miles underground is either impossible with available technology or economically impractical given the size of the affected area. New Straitsville sits directly above sections of this fire. In certain locations, the ground is warm to the touch. Steam vents from cracks in the earth. In the winter, patches of snow melt over areas where the underground heat is closest to the surface. In dry weather, smoke occasionally rises from the hillsides. People live here. Homes are for sale here, regularly for between $15,000 and $35,000. The listing descriptions do not always lead with the underground coal fire. At its peak in the late 1800s, New Straitsville had a population of several thousand and was one of the most productive coal communities in Perry County. It was the home of significant labor organizing activity, the fire itself was an act of labor protest, and the community had a political and social life that extended well beyond the mine. Today, New Straitsville has around 700 residents. The mine fire that those striking workers started in 1884 outlasted the mine, outlasted the company, outlasted the industry, outlasted the community's economic reason for existing, and is still going. The homes above it are $15,000. The fire below them has been burning since before any of the current residents' grandparents were born. Town 3, Knockemstiff, Ross County, 930 to 1130 most ghost towns become known because of what was built there. Knockemstiff became known because of what was written about it. In 2008, a writer named Donald Ray Pollock published a short story collection called Knockemstiff, named for the hollow in Ross County, Ohio, where he grew up and where he worked for 30 years at the Mead paper plant before enrolling in college at the age of 48. The book described a version of Knockemstiff that was brutal, specific, and unflinching about the poverty and violence and addiction that defined life in this particular corner of Appalachian, Ohio. The book won awards. It led to a novel called The Devil All the Time, which Netflix turned into a 2020 film starring Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, and Sebastian Stan. The film was watched by millions of people who had never heard of Knockemstiff and who, after watching it, understood exactly the kind of place it was describing, even if they didn't know the specific geography. Knockemstiff is a hollow, a valley between hills, in Paint Township, Ross County. It was never incorporated as a village. It had no downtown, no commercial district, no formal civic identity. What it had was families, a church, a school, and the particular isolated community life that forms in Appalachian hollows where everyone knows everyone and the outside world is genuinely distant. The economic forces that emptied out the coal towns of Perry and Vinton County did their work in Ross County differently, not through mine closures, but through the slow disappearance of the rural economy that had supported families in hollows like Knockemstiff for generations. When Pollock was growing up there in the 1960s and 1970s, families still lived in every house. Today, most of the hollow is empty. The houses that remain are among the least expensive residential properties in Ohio when they appear on the market at all, which is rarely. What Knockemstiff offers that no other town on this list can offer is a specific kind of fame. It is a place that produced a writer who told its story in a way that reached the world. The hollow that Donald Ray Pollock grew up in is the same hollow visible in thousands of photographs taken by people who drove out to see where the book came from. It is a ghost town that became a literary landmark without ever trying to be one. The homes, when they appear, are under $20,000. The story that put it on the map is available on Netflix. Town #2, Pomeroy, Meigs County, 1130 to 14 Pomeroy, Ohio, sits on a narrow strip of land between the Ohio River and a sheer sandstone bluff. In a geography so constrained that the town has only one main street, and that street is essentially pressed between the water and the rock. At its peak in the 19th century, Pomeroy was one of the most important salt and coal shipping points on the Ohio River. The salt wells in Meigs County produced salt that was shipped downriver to markets across the South and Midwest. The coal seams in the surrounding hills fed river barges that carried fuel to the foundries and factories of the industrial Ohio Valley. Pomeroy was the county seat. It had banks, a courthouse, hotels, a commercial life organized around the river traffic that passed its main street daily. The river is still there. The courthouse is still there. The main street is still there, sandwiched between the Ohio River and the bluff, exactly where it has always been. The population is not. Meigs County has been losing people for decades. Pomeroy's own population has contracted to around 1,700 residents in a county seat that once served a much larger regional economy. The commercial district has vacancies that have been vacancies for years. The buildings that face the river were constructed for a shipping economy that the railroad displaced, and the highway economy later finished off. What Pomeroy has that almost no other town on this list has is the river. Homes in Pomeroy with views of the Ohio River, genuine, unobstructed views of one of America's great waterways, the same river that flatboat traffic used to reach the frontier, the same river that Mark Twain wrote about, the same river that formed the boundary between free and slave states, are available for between $20,000 and $50,000. In any other context, riverfront property at those prices would not exist. In Pomeroy, it exists because the economy that made the river valuable stopped running, and what was left behind is beautiful and cheap and understood by everyone who lives there to be both things simultaneously. The flooding is real. The Ohio River floods. Pomeroy floods. This is not hidden information, and it is part of why the prices are what they are. But so are the sunsets over the river, and the width of the valley, and the particular quality of an Ohio River town that has been exactly where it is for 200 years. Town #1, Santoy, Perry County, 14 to 17 Calo, and now we reach the one at the end, the one where even the low prices don't apply, because there is nothing left to price. Santoy, Perry County, Ohio. Built in 1902 by the Sunday Creek Coal Company on a forested ridge in the hills northeast of Shawnee, Santoy was a company town in the fullest sense of the term. The company laid out the streets, the company built the houses, the company built the store, the church, the school, the company employed every working adult in the community, and the company named the town Santoy after a popular comic opera of the era, a choice that had nothing to do with the Ohio hills and everything to do with the casual authority of a corporation naming a community it owned. At its peak in the 1920s, Santoy had nearly 1,000 residents. The Sunday Creek Company ran its operations through the Depression years as the broader coal market contracted. But the combination of declining demand, falling prices, and the exhaustion of the most accessible seams made the economics increasingly difficult to sustain. In 1930, the company made a decision that stands apart from the standard narrative of company town abandonment. Rather than simply withdrawing its operations and leaving the community to decline gradually, the Sunday Creek Company called a meeting. They laid out the situation, the economics, the coal reserves, the projections, and then they gave the residents of Santoy a vote. The vote was to abandon the town. In 1931, the residents of Santoy collectively voted to leave. The decision was made democratically. In the most literal sense, the community chose its own end. Families organized their departures, belongings were packed. The process was orderly in the way that only a planned abandonment can be. Within months, Santoy was empty. The buildings were subsequently demolished or fell to the forest. The Sunday Creek Company removed what it could use elsewhere. The forest moved back in with the efficiency that Ohio's second-growth woodland applies to any abandoned structure, quickly, thoroughly, and without sentiment. Today, Santoy exists in the Wayne National Forest as a set of foundations and depressions in the ground, accessible only by forest roads that most people driving through Perry County will never find. The street grid is still legible if you know what to look for. The church foundation is there. The school foundation is there. The regularity of the lot lines is visible in the spacing of the trees growing through them. There is nothing to buy in Santoy. There has been nothing to buy since 1931.